anyway, Ted Czech is the author of Saving the Bees. He's also kind of our information guru here in York County, and he's a former journalist. He says he's recovering now, but he's here every Friday at 6:35 here on the Gary Sutton Show. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Hey, Gary. I'm doing great. How you doing?
Ted, doing wonderfully well. Just listening to Jimi Hendrix national
Yeah.
anthem back in 1969. I tell you what, that was amazing. It was amazing. Now, a lot of people
Yep.
say, I don't like that. You know, it desecrated that. It really didn't. We kind of celebrated the national anthem in a way, but some people can disagree on that, and that's okay. But anyway, you were looking this week at this whole federalization of the police there in D.C. You know, D.C. has a different kind of rule than anybody else does in the states because it's not a state.
Correct.
And so actually the Congress and the federal government control that particular entity, although it does have homeland rule as well. It has its own police force and its own mayor. Muriel Bowser is the mayor there. But, a little different thing this week, and it was that you wanted to talk about this morning, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So Trump has essentially taken over law enforcement in the city. He has brought in federal agents, federal police to assist the D.C. Metro Police, and
right.
So that's got a lot of people upset, and including the media. You know, they have come out. They've said, "Oh, it's racist. It's fascist. It's Jim Crow 2.0." Things like that. Things that you would expect from the mainstream media about anything that Trump does. It's kind of it's getting tiring, but it's their knee-jerk reaction to anything that he does, and as opposed
Right.
to doing their due diligence, looking into it, examining it, and this is just something that they shoot from the hip on, and it's unfortunate.
Well, I think that's an interesting point that you make because instead of looking at it and saying, okay, well, is this a good or a bad idea?
Right.
In other words, I hear different things like Washington's crime is down 26% over the last year, or they're down 35% over the last 3 years since 2022.
Right.
And I hear, okay, well, it's down that, but it's still a dangerous place. I mean, there's still a lot of murders there. There's still a lot of guns there. And then it's interesting to watch how the officials who control Washington have kind of gone along with it and said, well, we kind of welcome the federal help a little bit. Muriel Bowser said, we're going to work with it. Maybe it's not something that's her favorite, but she says, hey, we have made improvements, but we want to make more. That sounds reasonable to me. But you're right about the press comes in and says, oh, Trump did it, therefore it must suck.
Right.
And that's not exactly the way to go after this. The way to go after it is, okay, what is the act? I mean, I'm just trying to be a reporter here for a second. What
Sure.
is the act? Is it getting results? Does it violate any laws? Does it violate the Constitution? Is it authoritarian? Well, it is authoritarian, but is it a bad thing? Does it go outside the scope of what we're supposed to be doing? So those would be questions I would be asking. Would that be a good journalist to ask those kind of questions?
Oh, absolutely. And you mentioned the statistics. Well, the other side of that is that there's allegations. The police union in D.C. has made allegations that the books are being cooked, so to speak. That those crime statistics are being manipulated. There was even a high-ranking police official who was, I believe, suspended for doing just that. And so there's reports that supervisors are downgrading. You know, when you've got officers, rank and file officers, say investigating a felony, well, then the supervisor would say, "Well, we're going to count that in the books as a misdemeanor."
Oh.
So we've got those. I'm stating it plainly. Right now they're allegations, but the media has not even recognized that. They're not reporting that. They're just saying crime is down. Crime is down. Well, yeah, but it's still pretty high. And as Janine Pirro said, try telling that to a crime victim's family. Try telling them that crime is down and see how they react to it.
You should feel better. Your family member got murdered, but the crime's down. So you feel better about that. One thing I didn't see reported a lot, there's something called Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act, which allows the president to assume emergency control of the Capitol's police
Right.
force for 30 days. Now, how many places have you heard that reported? Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act, and it allows the president to step
Right.
in and actually assume emergency control. Now, here's the rub. What is an emergency? Is it an emergency right now? And the president said, this is a dirty city, it's a crime-ridden capital, and I'm going to step in and do this.
Right.
So, again, him declaring an emergency, and other people saying, well, it's not an emergency, but, what constitutes an emergency? I guess that's something else you'd have to dig into and do a little bit of research on, right?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. What was the impetus for this? I'm not 100% on this, but you remember there was a guy that was working for Doge, a young guy. He was working for Doge, and his nickname was Big Balls.
Yep.
And the media had fun with that. They couldn't believe they couldn't wrap their minds around that was his screen name. Whereas, people assume all sorts of screen names online. But anyway, Big Balls he was severely assaulted, just before, it seemed, I believe, just before Trump made this announcement. There were pictures that were all over that went viral. He's bare-chested and he's got blood all over his chest, all over his face. He was defending his girlfriend from a group of thugs in D.C. So, that seems like, maybe that's how it got in Trump's crosshairs. I don't know for sure.
I don't know either. But as of Tuesday, the sweep of the city, and they've got 1,450 law enforcement participants, according to the White House, including roughly 30 National Guard troops and 750 uniformed D.C. police. So Tuesday's arrests included one arrested on suspected homicide, 7 related to narcotics charges, 33 for alleged firearm offenses, even though you're not supposed to own a gun in D.C., 10 related to warrants, as well as the arrest of 23 illegal immigrants. Law enforcement recovered a total of 24 firearms on Tuesday, according to the White House. That was what happened. Again, I don't know if it's the right or wrong thing to do here, but it seems to me that if you're making arrests of the bad guys and people have done things, that maybe that's a good thing. I'm just saying, but you don't see that too many places right now. You hear racism and all that kind of thing, and yet at the same time, and not necessarily from the mayor, who's Muriel Bowser, who's kind of been going along, and to some degree the police chief, who's been going along and saying, well, we welcome the help of the federal people in our police force on this for 30 days. But the nation's capital in recent years has been, rocked by shootings that have left innocent children dead and shot, and a trend of juveniles committing carjackings that have turned deadly in some cases. You got shoplifting crimes and attacks on government employees, summer interns, others. Fatal shooting of a 21-year-old congressional intern, Eric Tarpinian Jakim, in June. So it's not like they haven't had some reason for doing this, and yet is it a big enough reason? We don't know. But President Trump apparently thinks it is.
Yeah, here's the other interesting thing about the media, though. In the days after Trump's takeover, we have several prominent mainstream media reporters and anchors who have said, you know what, it is bad here. And they've been relating their personal stories about either being victims or knowing victims of crimes. I find that very interesting, that they're actually being honest and saying, hey, look, this is in fact a problem.
Well, and one of the things too, and I was reading an article today about how it's divided some Democrats over this, where they're saying, hey, we're supposed to be hating Trump right now. Let's get on board. And the other people are saying, wait a second. Some people are saying realistically, this is maybe going to help in the long run. I don't know. But there are two schools of thought there, and it always seems to be that somewhere in the middle is where the truth lives. But final thoughts on that this morning?
Well, I was reading one thing. I think it was Joe Scarborough, who works for MSNBC. He was saying that this is a trap that Trump has laid. I don't know if he meant to do it this way, but if you're against Trump, then essentially you're for crime. You're all in on you're supporting crime if you're not supporting the crackdown on it. So it's a tough situation.
Is that what Trump does? Does he set up those situations where it's either or? I mean, there's no nuances to it. Does he do that on purpose? Do you think, is he that smart?
I mean, honestly,
I'm asking your opinion here, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it depends who you talk to. But I think, I mean, yeah, it was, the point was that secretly Democrats support Trump, but they can't. I think you alluded to this. They can't publicly because they're Democrats, and that's the party. That's the party line. But secretly, they're like, "Oh, whew, man, am I glad he's doing this? It's about time."
The rule is everything he does is bad because he's Trump.
Right.
So,
right.
I think you have to be aware of that as well. But it's interesting. I mean, he definitely occupies Reddit space in all of our minds every single day. But yeah, interesting analysis this morning on this, and we'll see what the results are in the long run and how this all turns out in the long run. But hey, thanks for being with us this morning. Saving the Beast, it's still out there, right?
People on
Amazon.
You bet.
Yeah. So pick it up, Ted Czech, Czech, and he is with us every Friday morning here on the Gary Sutton Show. Thank you, my friend. Have a great weekend, okay?
Thank you, Gary. Yeah, you too, man.
Thanks, Ted. Take care. Ted Czech here on the Gary Sutton Show on WOYK. It is interesting what's happening there. They're getting some results, but again,